With the recent play of some of the Chicago Bulls players, Chicago Bulls are starting to dominate the trade rumors yet again. And I was asked by one of our most loyal listeners in Winton Mahorn to cover a trade rumor. So I said, let's go ahead and get all the trade rumors together and let's cover it a little bit in a different way during the mailbag. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to get into the actual mailbag, all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. I was talking in the comment section when asked about a trade rumor surrounding Coby White going to the Los Angeles Lakers. I had looked into it, and I said I was going to maybe cover it on a nightly episode where I do some random episodes at night. But then I started thinking, like, there are a lot with the Bulls, with the play of Zach LaVine, with the play of Nikola Vucevic, even some surrounding Torrey Craig and Patrick Williams. There are actually a lot of trade rumors right now surrounding Chicago Bulls players. And I figured what better episode to cover that, considering that Winton asked for it, than on the mailbag episode, right? So it's a mailbag in a little bit of a different way. Again, I want to be clear here. Saturday, Sundays, they're mailbag days on top of whatever else goes on with games or whatever else. So make sure you guys are getting in your phone calls, your text messages, your emails before the weekend, so I can cover any questions that you have, any hot takes that you have, anything in regards to the Chicago Bulls. You can leave that. The number to do so, 773-270-2799. But with that said, let's get into it. So, of course, we're going to start off with Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic, mainly just because they're the two biggest names on the Chicago Bulls that could enter the trade market this upcoming year. When you pair it in with what we've heard earlier in the season, that AK and Eversley were going to give the Bulls about 35 games to see where this team was, and then that may determine how aggressive they're trying to sell some of these pieces at the trade deadline. And the play of Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic has been covered extensively, right? So I'm not going to get into the numbers. You guys know them. If you don't know them, I got plenty of episodes covering them. But both these guys are having career best years. Zach LaVine, as far as from the efficiency standpoint, which he's averaging career highs in efficiency, even though he's not averaging the most points that he has in his career, he's becoming a way more efficient player, and he's playing the best defense that we've seen consistently from Zach LaVine. He's locked in on the defensive side more times than not. And so naturally, it's going to, when you pair that with how the season ended, the fact that Zach LaVine was in trade rumors all offseason, yeah, his name is going to be out there. And I think as his level of play continues to stay consistent and up, and he's playing a brand of basketball that is more conducive, that contributes to winning, naturally there's going to be more teams in there. One team keeps being the prominent team that's mentioned with them, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, we don't have a lot of specific team rumors. We do have Los Angeles Lakers, and then we have a rumor in regards to the Denver Nuggets. Those are the two that's really dominating it. From Joe Cowley, Jamal Collier, these guys have really talked about it, and that's really the two teams that have been talked about the most. You have some outskirt teams like the Orlando Magic that was mentioned at one point in time, but then again, I don't think that they're like trying to give up their core or anything. They're playing actually pretty well. Franz is taking his game to a new level. And while the Lakers naturally so are going to be dominant in both the trade rumors for Vooch and for Zach LaVine, that kind of the most prevalent teams right now, it doesn't really mean that it's just those two teams' interested, right? When it comes down to Zach LaVine, what are you looking for if you get Zach LaVine back? And that's been the thing that's been so wildly up and down, right? You have some Bulls fans that say things like, well, if we're not getting somebody better, but then again, the Bulls are more so, if they do move Zach, looking to get rid of the contract, right, is one of the biggest things, that maybe get some young talent back. So the Lakers deal, there was a Lakers deal that was rumored around that would send Vooch and Zach LaVine to the Lakers. I doubt that happens. That's a major deal when it comes down to it. That one came from Jake Fisher. I'm not necessarily believing that either, but what are the teams? And so rather than talk about that, the Lakers are, of course, mentioned. There was a Nuggets deal that was centered around Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Nazi as well, them coming over to the Chicago Bulls, as well as some future picks. But when it comes to it, is this, right? The Lakers are a team, for example, that they have 2 first-round picks that they could basically offer, 2029 and 2031, because you can't offer them back-to-back years. So because of that, it becomes about, is that enough for Zach LaVine? And that's then, if you add Zach LaVine to the Lakers, that means you're looking at a lower pick, right? You're looking at a pick in the low 20s, mid-20s maybe at the best. And so if that's the marker for Zach LaVine, are the Bulls really prioritizing taking back contracts that expire quicker, that are lesser, whatever that being the case? And that may very well be what the Bulls are looking at. But Zach LaVine is a name out there on the trade market And the Lakers and the Nuggets right now are the two teams that are mentioned as the most prevalent ones, as well as with Nikola Vucevic. Now, Vuce is a player that is having his best season in the Bulls uniform, period. The most consistent he's been locked in. He's actually been pretty good on ball defensively. He still gets blown up in pick and rolls and on drives. But these are two players that I don't think anybody's surprised that his name is going to be floated out there in a lot of trade rumors. The bigger question is that as we approach that trade deadline, is this really where the Bulls sit with these guys? And it's some back and forth in that. Of course, you have the Bulls fans. We got a voicemail from Brian Washington, which we'll play a little bit later, that don't want to see a rebuild. Rebuilds suck. Right now, here's the thing that I'll say is that if the Bulls get it right, which is a big if for this team, if they do keep their top 10 pick and get the right guy, again, big if with this front office. If they do, you may not be that far off in a rebuild, right? You still have Matas Bucilis. You got Coby. You got Haize still under contract. You'll be adding like another guy that may be a top 10 pick in this draft to this roster. Patrick Williams is still here, Julian Dalen. So you already have a young core, right? At that point, it would be gearing and switching towards how quickly can you develop these guys and how much of their ceilings can you maximize out on. And if it ends up being a hit for some of those guys, keep in mind, you got Coby White, who, if Coby White was the actual number one scorer, he's probably a 20, 25 point per game scorer. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're winning, right? But it gives you a base, right? And so we'll see, right? But Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, it makes sense that both their names are out there. And like I said, not too surprised by that. I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. And it just comes down to what can you get? What's the most that you can get, and what type of relief are you getting? The next one that actually was pretty surprising, and this one came from Jake Fisher as well, is that Patrick Williams. And he actually said this, Jake Fisher goes on to say this, that the Bulls are more willing than ever to discuss a Patrick Williams trade. And that said that there are a lot of teams that are still interested in Patrick Williams because of his inexpensive salary. Again, as many people are complaining about the $18 million, $18 million in this modern NBA is a fairly reasonable contract, regardless of the performance. There are players that are performing less than Patrick Williams that maybe are more consistent, but like aren't nearly the defenders he are and aren't scoring too much more than Patrick Williams that are getting $30 million, right? But that hearing that there are teams that are interested in Patrick Williams and that there are teams circling and hoping that the Bulls are going to make Patrick Williams available at this trade deadline, that's not really a overall surprising thing for me, because like I said before, we are the other fan base that has this attachment to Patrick Williams because he was drafted 4th overall. But there are a lot of teams around the NBA that will look at somebody that can score 10 points per game, play really good defense, can guard multiple positions, and can shoot the three ball at a 40% clip. Yeah, there are going to be some teams, again, with better bases and superstars. They're going to look at that and say, yeah, we can absolutely use that. And so it seems like right now, per Jake L. Fisher, that if the Bulls do move on from it, it's another situation in which they're looking to strike while players' value is high rather than miss out on the player moving by. And so when you have players like, Matas Bucilis and Dalen Terry and how he's playing, and Julian Phillips, all there that can operate that same kind of role that Patrick Williams operates in, or position, right? That maybe the Bulls, if the right calls come across, that they could be looking at it. Now, Jake L. Fisher mentions that the Golden State Warriors could be a team interested in Patrick Williams, and especially with losing Melton to injury, and they could be looking to use Kevon Looney and a first-round pick to make a team like Chicago bite on a player like Patrick Williams. Interesting deal. Not necessarily saying that I love it. The first-round pick, if you get a first-rounder back, yes, it's a late first-round pick, make no mistake about it, especially with the way that the Warriors are playing. But if you can get that first-round pick, maybe the Bulls bite on it if they truly go into, we're going into all asset acquisition mode. I still think this front office is very attached to P. Will and thus aren't necessarily looking to move on from him, but we'll see. Next up, this one comes from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, and he points out that the Milwaukee Bucks have shown interest in Torrey Craig as a piece to add depth to the wing position for the Milwaukee Bucks. And then they would be looking at a deal centered around Marjon Beauchamp or Pat Connaughton to try to get the deal done. Now, this is interesting enough, right? Torrey Craig is on basically a vet minimum contract. Marjon Beauchamp has a contract of $2.7 million, and Pat Connaughton has a contract of $9.4 million. So it would be determined by or be dependent on what are the Milwaukee Bucks offering outside of just that. Keep in mind, the Bulls have a little bit of flexibility to take on maybe a little bit more salary in a trade, but Torrey Craig's contract is an easily movable $2.8 million. So if Marjon Beauchamp is the piece that they're looking to move on, what would that add for the Bulls? Marjon is a player that has a lot of upside still at only 24 years old as a wing defender in this league as well. And he was just drafted in the 2022 draft at 24th overall. So if the Bulls could get a young piece back for a veteran that is clearly not part of your future, I'm not necessarily mad at that deal, regardless of any other compensation that they could throw in on that. If you can get some seconds on top of that, great, right? The Milwaukee Bucks, I believe, have Cleveland's second-round pick in 2025, and then they have their own second-round picks all throughout after that. So it's a chance that, hey, we'll see what happens when it comes down to that. But again, for Torrey Craig, it just comes down to taking advantage of any type of value that's out there for Torrey Craig, because Torrey Craig is not really part of your future. So really interesting trade rumor for Torrey Craig. We'll see what goes there, but I do think it makes a lot of sense for him to move to a team with stars on it, because that's always when Torrey Craig is at his best, when he's playing with stars. And then lastly, to kind of round this all out, Coby White. Now, this is from Blake Meek, who floated around that the Lakers could be interested in Coby White. Lakers interested in a lot of Bulls players. The deal isn't really a feasible deal that he presented, saying that Coby White, Torrey Craig, for Jared Vanderbilt, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Maxwell Lewis, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2031 first-round pick. I don't think the Bulls give up Coby White in this type of move. I don't think they look to move Coby White at all, but if they do, you can get so much more back than draft picks that are out into 2029 and 2031. And then, yeah, you're getting Jalen Hood-Schifino back, who is a young player as well. Jared Vanderbilt back as well, who projects to be a solid wing defender, but he can't stay healthy. I don't like this deal at all. And this is part of the reason why I didn't drop the usual news episodes that I drop when trade rumors like this pop up, mainly just because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't match with the Bulls, with the roster spots that we have open. You would have to make subsequent moves, things like that. And also Blake Meek is not really a credible source for the Lakers or for the Bulls. It's kind of just speculation. So that's why I didn't really cover this a whole lot heavily. And it really is a non-starter for me in the case anyway. But you guys can let me know how you feel. That's kind of let me know if you want to hear more trade rumor roundups. I won't ever really do just trade episodes. Like, it's not the type of content that I like doing a lot, but in the sense of like the framework of a mailbag episode, rounding up all the recent rumors, I'm not necessarily against that. Let me know what you guys think on it down below. Before we go, last thing that I want to get in, we had a concerning update about Patrick Williams and his injury yesterday in regards to the fact that they did some scans. There's still a lot of inflammation in there. And so they're not even going to look at ramping him back up until that inflammation's down. But Patrick Williams said he's not overly concerned about it. And he said this, that when asked about the discomfort that he's dealing with now compared to before he had his surgery, he said this: it's not even close. I couldn't even really push off of it last year. Every step, every run was tough before the surgery. I remember what it felt like. It's not even close to that. I'm not really concerned. Obviously, with this type of stuff, I'm just leaning on the doctors, obviously our training staff, the team I work with back home over the summer. Nobody seems to be worried. It's kind of the thing that happens post-surgery. First year after surgery is always the toughest. We'll try to work through it with different things. I think it's an accumulation of the minutes overall. It wasn't a specific play or anything like that. So, let's hope that ends up being the case for P. Will, and that this doesn't develop into something more serious, and then P. Will can get back on the court sooner rather than later, because guess what? The Bulls defense does need him. So that's my thought process. You guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Let's get into the last topic. Let's get into the mailbags for today. This first voicemail, this one's from Brian Washington.
Haize, what's up, man? This is Brian Washington again, man. Man, I gotta apologize to you for even thinking this motherfucking team was gonna do something, man, but that's the average Bulls fan having hope. You know what I'm saying? Still got hope for him because I'm a diehard Bulls fan, but god damn, bro. God damn. Check this out. My grandson, he's 2 years old, he took his first fucking shit in his pocket. And I looked in there, bro, it was the biggest shit. You'd have thought I took that motherfucking shit. But when I came back to watch the game after attending, checking on him, the Bulls took a bigger shit than my fucking grandson. They took a bigger shit last night. That was fucking embarrassing, bro. That was embarrassing. If they lose tonight against the Detroit Pistons, bro, I'm just up. Somebody got to get fired. Something got to change, some trade. I know I say I keep the players, but you know what? At this point, bro, ain't nobody safe. Everybody can get fucking traded. Coby, Giddey, Brazilius, Patrick Wood, every motherfucker is on the trading block right now. The coach should be on his seat. He shouldn't be able to sit down. His fucking seat should be so fucking hot. And not just him, the other fucking coaches too. All of them. The whole system. And even management. You fuck around have to get rid of them. It's looking like they should sell the fucking team, bro. For real, because they don't like to spend no money. I know the Bulls are all about contracts and shit, but at least 1 year out of your fucking lifetime, and at least my lifetime, spend some fucking money. Go over the fucking tax, whatever the fuck. Do it. Because I'm tired. I don't even want them to get all these fucking rookies and these picks so we can watch 6, 7 more years of fucking poor basketball. Them getting Cooper Flag ain't gonna make a fucking difference if we're not developing this team. We can't even develop our young players. And you see as they go on to other teams, they become better players all the fucking time. You know what I'm saying? This shit is sad, bro. And I just want to apologize for even thinking about this motherfucking team can do anything. I'm so disappointed, man. I could go and shit on they fucking bench, my damn self. Just take a big ass shit on the fucking Bulls bench and say, this is how you motherfuckers play. And we sick of it. Bulls fan, we sick of this shit. I don't want to see no rebuild and shit. We got to go all in at some point. I don't want to see none of this rebuild and all these fucking rookies. We have enough of them. We have a G League. We can't develop none of them. So there's no point with all this, get this pick, top 10 pick. It won't fucking matter. Like you said the other night.
First of all, it's a little too much shit conversation for my comfort level in that voicemail, Brian. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, the fact that you started it off shitty, it ended with shit. Like, come on. We got to find a different correlation than talking so much about shit. But all jokes aside, should Billy Donovan be on the hot seat? Yeah. And again, I think that's just because of the performance and the results that we've gotten out of this team. A coach that has had declining records year after year should be on the hot seat. I just think that's just, as a baseline, that should be the case, right? And then you work into other things of not really developing players well over your tenure and the situational awareness, not using players to the best of their ability and their skill sets. All those things are there. Now, as far as the luxury tax, it's funny. I just had a conversation in the Discord about this. Listen, spending to the tax doesn't mean that a team's going to be successful. 22 teams did not pay the luxury tax last year, which means that the majority of the league does not pay the luxury tax. So we got to get out of this thought process of the Bulls are being cheap just because they don't spend into the tax. That's actually not true. They're cheap because of other things, right? But they're over the salary cap every single year. That area between, because you can go over the salary cap without hitting the luxury tax. The Bulls are always over the salary cap. So it's not that spending to the luxury tax doesn't mean you're successful. It just doesn't. It's just not. It's not true, right? But you have to have a team that's worth spending to the luxury tax. Now, I do think that the Bulls have missed out on some moves. For example, in the moving of DeMar DeRozan, had they been willing to take on the Harrison Barnes contract and go into the luxury tax, they would have gotten a first-round pick out of that. Protected, but they would have gotten a first-round pick. So it's situations like that. But as far as just the state of the roster, that's not really because of the luxury tax, not in my opinion. And I know that you say you don't want to see a rebuild, but again, I say this all the time. Would you rather see 3 years of us just getting to the play-in and being eliminated? Like, fans look at this thing of winning and losing, right? The front office has to also look at it as what gets us to sustain winning and actually being a team that can make some moves sooner rather than later. And I tell you what, staying here and just this keeping the same thing, that's not going to get us anywhere. So while I know not a lot of people have a taste for a rebuild, but like I said in the first segment, if we did go into moving these assets and getting the draft pick right, which again, as you said, is a big if on us getting the right guy and then developing that guy, that's a more sustainable future than where the Bulls are right now, where we're just in the play-in and get eliminated every year and have no real chance of making it out the first round. So, I mean, you got to look at it that way as well. So we'll see what this front office ends up doing. But thank you for the voicemail, Brian. Let's get into this next one. This one's from Shay.
Yo, Haize. Look, man, I'm not saying that this will happen, but don't be surprised if the Chicago Bulls get on a little bit of a run in November. Now, I'm not saying it will happen, but possibly chance it might. Because, look, I believe that these guys have something to prove. Yeah, they're going through growing pains. They're going to have a lot of ugly losses, but when I said this before the season started, you have people that have something to prove, you'll be surprised and feel like they have something to prove. You'll be surprised about what they could do and what type of noise they can make. Now, I'm not saying that they will. I'm not saying, but I sure wouldn't put it past them and saying that they won't. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Okay, so you're not saying that they will, but you're not saying. What are you saying, Shay? Like, all jokes aside, you know you're my little brother, but what are you really saying? Nothing. But to say that the Bulls can get out in a run in November and I had to check. You did leave this voicemail yesterday, so this isn't something that's been sitting in the mailbox for weeks or something. We got 4 games left in the month of November. We got Memphis, Washington, Orlando, and Boston. Memphis, Washington, Orlando, and Boston. Yeah, we got 4. I'm old. I'm getting old. So 4 games left. And there's going to be tough games in that. Washington, of course, pencil that in as a win. Orlando's playing good. Boston has our number for a while. And Memphis, it could go either way with Memphis, depending on if Ja's playing or not, which I don't think he's playing tonight. But hey, if the Bulls can get out on a run to end the month of November, great. Now, that month of December, especially in the middle of December, is still hellacious. That's where I'd more rather see the Bulls get in a run at that really is going to mean something. But overall, like if the Bulls do get on a mini run now, it doesn't really change much for me. So, but hey, it's possible. It's definitely possible, as you said, but it's also possible that it doesn't, as you said. Why did you leave the voicemail, Shay? No, I'm just playing. Love you, Shay. Let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. And concerning the issue of whether or not to trade Haize and Zach and how to do the rebuild, I agree with you that there's probably no chance of doing that as long as Billy Donovan is the head coach. Because eventually you're going to have to move off of them. And whoever the new head coach is going to want to bring in their own guy. So making a move or any move at this point in time will be somewhat hesitant. Well, not hesitant, okay, but maybe rushed. Like, I agree with you, trading guys when their value is high. But what other trades we're looking at right now? Because teams will probably still offer you, garbage for Zach, and teams might offer you protected first for Vooch. But what are you going to offer in return? Because right now, as far as I see it, the Bulls are going to finish with a top 5 pick, and that's what you really need to start a proper rebuild. One of those guys to be the face of your franchise, and I don't see the Bulls getting that. And even if they get him, I don't see Billy Donovan still the head coach, them being able to develop that player simply because of history. If you're going to move off from Zach and Vooch, you got to have an idea of who's your number 1 and number 2 scorers are going to be after them. And they have to play at least some semblance of defense, because you can't just expect your guys who are going to get paid probably over $40 million a year be one-way players. If you do that, you're going to end up with pretty much a team of Josh Giddey, who are typically one-way players. And concerning Giddey, some guys thought that he was going to get over $30 million a year, and he's the type of guy who was averaging 18, 8, and 8 with 2 turnovers or less. And yeah, I probably would say go ahead and give it to him despite of his poor defense. But at this point, you might be having to look for a trade partner for him. But what's your opinion on the matter? Thanks.
Okay, Reggie, so NBA rebuilds aren't like, or new coaching isn't like the NFL. Like, you don't really have people that come in and just want to bring, that's more of an NFL thing where the people just want to bring in their guys, right? Because it's so difficult to overturn a roster in the NBA. So that's why I think personally in the NBA, it's really important to have a coach that can change and adapt their system to the talent that you have, which is what I hope that the Bulls look, because Chandler could go so wildly different. So you need a coach that's adaptable. So I'm not really saying that if the Bulls do go a different way with coach, that it means that a lot of these guys are going to want to leave, because that's not really the case when it works for the NBA. Look at Detroit, for example. Like, yeah, they brought in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Tobias Harris, but Jaden Ivey's having a career year, and he's just having a coach that has the better idea of how to utilize him, right? So I think that that's a part into it. So it's important to have a system that can, a coach that adapts their system to your talent, especially when you have a lot of young talent that you're not really looking to jettison out just because you get a new coach in. You would hope that the new coach is being there to help maximize the talent that you have here and get those guys in better positions. At least in my opinion, but we'll see what happens there. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Michael Korn.
Hey, Haize, Mike Korn here. I think all the focus on Josh Giddey is apparent he's a weak link, right? Hey, but if you were one of his teammates yesterday, wouldn't you say, bro, take a charge from Giannis, man? You'll be legend. But in all honesty, you would think like he would have taken it upon himself to just like try to step in front of him, I wouldn't want to do that personally, but I'm not I'm not an NBA player, right? But, I think, it shows that there's a lot of, there's he may not just have the mentality at this point. You know, he kind of reminds me of Patrick Williams in a way, right? You know, he had a great chance to be a Crocodile Dundee. Hey, anyway, what I wanted to ask you, if we do trade Zach and Vooch, like what do you think is a baseline that you could live with? You know, talking just draft choices, because when I look at different teams out there, and players possibly, I don't, like, you really want like bad contracts, and you know, I don't think you need bad contracts to still be in the chase for one of the top draft choices. But anyway, I'd like to know what you think. Hey, thanks a lot. Loving the show. And hey, shout out to your son on the post game yesterday, asking about the Northern Lights. Man, that was great. Hey, thanks a lot. Bye.
Yeah, I think Josh Giddey definitely was suffering from a confidence boost and confidence decline, and hopefully last night helps get his confidence back on track, because the confidence Josh Giddey does give a lot more effort, right? So when you talk about that mentality aspect, I think confidence plays a large part in that. Like, Josh Giddey is a player that when his confidence is shaken, you see it and it's evident. And so Josh Giddey getting his confidence back, regardless of how you look at Josh Giddey as a player, that's going to put us in a situation where we can see exactly like who and what Josh Giddey can be, right? Now, as far as trading Zach and Vooch, I think that, in my personal opinion, you're looking back, yeah, if you take on bad salary, you get more draft picks. So if the Bulls are looking at this thing more so in the sense of, let's get the most draft picks and draft capital that we can, taking back bad salary is the case of that. Now, you can also take on some young, unproven players, which the Bulls have kind of done with some of their signings, and E.J. Liddell and those type of guys, right? So we'll see what it comes about for that. I think ultimately it just comes down to this, is that when they're moving on, if they move on from these guys, that it opens you up a lot of different ways that you can go, but you just got to see that path through. That means you're going to have to stay on that path for 2 or 3 years before you really kind of make any type of alterations, and we'll see what it brings. As far as my son asking about the Northern Lights, hey, that's his thing right now that he's interested in. I love it. I'm going to try to take him to see it maybe sometime in spring, wherever we can see it from, because, hey, he's really into these Northern Lights right now. But all right, let's get into the last voicemail for today. This one's from Corn.
Hey, what's the word, King? It's your brother Corn, man. I'm going to get right to it real quickly. Bull season, all I'm looking for is development this year. I don't care about wins or losses, none of that bullshit. I'm looking at development of the team thus far, what the fuck we're going to be doing going towards the coming years. Now, off of that, I got 2 questions for you. A 2-part question. I guess you can call it that. Vooch and Zach are balling this year. They are doing what the fuck they're supposed to do, right? Now, we know that a trade is coming, most likely, right? So my question to you is, which team you see will be trading that will be needing their services? Which team you think that will be needing Zach services? Which team you think that be needing Vooch services? And what you think that we can get back right now, how they're playing right now, what are their values right now? I'm not talking about past or whatever and all that. I'm talking about right now, how they're playing this season. What will be their value, and what teams you see will be interested in them too? Because they balling, man. Shout out to them, man. All right, King. Like I said, I ain't want to hold you up too long, man. Real quick question, what it's about. Straight to the point. Appreciate you like always. Blessings.
Yeah, looking for development for the rest of the season, I think, is the key thing here, right? That's the thing that the Bulls should have been doing for a while, and so I'm not mad at them trying to see that through. I think that's the right decision to make, and they just gotta keep going through it. And so we'll see what happens with that. Overall, I'll say this: is that development is not always linear, right? It's not like, I think sometimes we look at it as this easy thing, but it's really not, right? And you got to thread that needle well, but you have to be intentional about how you develop players. You have to be intentional about what you're putting in to get these guys to develop, and we haven't always seen that from the Chicago Bulls. So we got to get better with that. If and when we do, I think things are going to work out better. But yeah, let's see how the development goes for the rest of the season, because Modest, Dalen, Julian Julian hasn't really been the Julian he started out this season being. Hopefully we get back to that, but you're seeing that these guys with more minutes are starting to find their stride, and that does nothing but help the Bulls' future even more. So let's hope that that's the case. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, The number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.